The biting chill of a late November afternoon sliced through the air in Asheville, North Carolina, as I stood beside my mother's grave, her black and white portrait trembling in my gloved hands. Bare branches clawed at the gray, oppressive sky, their skeletal forms swaying in the wind that stung my cheeks. I was Grace Holloway, 38 years old, and that day when I buried my mother, Evelyn, my world fractured. I'd devoted 14 years to Ironclad Industries, a steel manufacturing firm I'd once called my second home. But as the dirt thudded onto her coffin, an email buzzed in my pocket, firing me for excessive leave. No call, no face-to-face, just a cold dismissal. The void inside me froze over, a silence so profound it drowned the mourner's murmurs. I thought I'd built resilience through years of toil, but losing her and my job stripped me bare. What would rise from this ruin, and how would I reclaim my worth? That question echoed, a faint clang in the hollow of my chest. I began at Ironclad at 24, fresh from a trade school welding program, my father Thomas still alive. A gruff foreman in the foundry, he'd beam with pride when I joined, though I never grasped his deeper role. A year later a stroke took him, leaving Mom and me. She honored his wish, hiding a secret. He'd co-founded Ironclad. I grew up oblivious, raised to stand on my own merit, not privilege. Now reflecting, I see their intent, to shield me from a tainted legacy, but the cost was steep. That day, losing Mom, I lost the anchor who whispered I was enough, even as Ironclad cast me aside. The email came as I stood numb by the grave. Dear Ms. Holloway, your employment is terminated due to policy violations. Best wishes. My fingers, stiff with cold, reread it twice. The coffin's descent faded behind me. Inside, I was a glacier. Ironclad, once my refuge, discarded me like scrap metal. I knew the architect, Nathan Reed, the slick VP with a silver tongue, preaching family values while orchestrating cuts. I stumbled to my car, collapsing into the driver's seat, and wept, raw, wrenching sobs that shook the frame. I'd lost Mom, my job, my trust. I'd believed hard work would earn respect, but the world proved otherwise. In that darkness, a voice emerged, unfamiliar yet firm. Don't let them define you. I didn't know my next step, only that part of me died and another awoke. The drive home to my modest bungalow blurred into a gray smear, streetlights flickering, trees stark against the sky, wind biting through the cracks. Exhaustion settled like ash. The house, once filled with Mom's laughter, was a tomb of silence, her quilt draped over the couch, her teapot untouched. I dropped my bag, the portrait slipping to shatter on the hardwood. Kneeling to gather the glass, I felt hollow, a shell drained of purpose. Hours later, I dragged myself to the kitchen table, opening my laptop out of habit. Logging into Ironclad's portal, I faced, access disabled. Contact admin. They'd erased me, 14 years of nights welding prototypes, skipped vacations, ignored ideas. Gone. I recalled late shifts under harsh lights, being the last to leave, holidays sacrificed. In meetings, my suggestions were overlooked, only for Nathan to parrot them later, earning praise. Once I reworked a safety protocol he'd botched. He claimed it, smirking, team effort. I stayed silent, hoping loyalty would pay off. But when Mom fell ill, requesting part-time hours, Nathan's gaze turned cold. I worked remotely, met deadlines, yet he reassigned my projects, whispering I lacked drive. Colleagues avoided me. Rumors painted me as unambitious. I endured, believing silence would shield me. My phone vibrated, a text from Mia, a former coworker I'd mentored. I'm so sorry, Grace. A hollow laugh escaped me, mirroring the culture Nathan fostered, smiles hiding knives. I stared at Mom's mended photo, her eyes piercing mine. Her voice, or mine, whispered, they don't own your worth. That night I couldn't sleep. I sifted through Mom's belongings, seeking solace. In a trunk, I found a rusted tin box. Inside, a brittle letter and a brass key. The handwriting, Dad's, read, Grace, if you find this, it's time. You're the heir. My breath caught. Ironclad was his and I was its legacy. Nathan had fired the founder's daughter, blind to the truth. The key felt heavy, a spark igniting. Pain, betrayal, years of being trampled fused into awakening. They thought me broken, but I was the ember. What would I forge from this fire, and how would I wield it? That question rang, a hammer on steel. The story's getting more and more interesting, isn't it? Don't miss out on what happens next. Hit that subscribe button right now and turn on notifications. Let's see what other challenges await our hero. The creak of my bungalow door in Asheville, North Carolina, marked my return from the cemetery, my boots tracking mud onto a faded rug Mom had woven with threads of blue and green, its edges worn from years of her careful steps. The emails sting. Nathan Reed's betrayal and my abrupt severance from Ironclad Industries clung like soot to the pine walls, etched with the memory of that frigid graveside dismissal. My pulse raced with the weight of that moment, the cold rejection cutting deeper than the winter frost seeping through the window panes outside. The silence after leaving Ironclad was a molten rift, burning through 14 years of suppressed hope and loyalty, its heat a stark contrast to the icy void within me. Mia's texts, "Are you okay? Please call me," and a colleague's "This can't be right, it's unfair" pinged relentlessly, a pressure cooker of concern and confusion I chose to ignore with a firm tap of the mute button. What would Nathan's next move be? Retaliation, denial, or a calculated charm offensive? And how would I shield this awakening, this fragile ember of self, from the furnace of his influence? That question simmered, a forge fire urging me on through the uncertainty. The days after were a crucible of resolve and reckoning, a testing ground where my spirit was both tempered and transformed. I sank into Mom's rocking chair by the wood stove, its crackle and the scent of burning oak my only comfort, the flickering flames casting shadows that danced across the room as my mind wrestled with the letter's staggering revelation. Mia, a former coworker with a gentle laugh and steady hands, brought solace. Cornbread fragrant with molasses, sweet potato casserole still warm from the oven, her quiet strength a lifeline amidst the storm. Her cousin Lena sent a leather-bound journal with a note tucked inside. "You're forging your own path, one spark at a time." I braced for the familiar wave of guilt, the conditioning they'd instilled to keep me tethered, but it dissolved like mist over the Blue Ridge, leaving me free to face the truth. Instead, I opened the ledger, unsettled scores, and began logging the toll with a steady hand. Owen's funded machinery upgrades, Nathan's lavish bonuses, my sidelined innovations that never saw the light of day. Each entry steeled my will, a hammer strike against the anvil of their neglect, fueling a fire I hadn't known I carried deep within. I fortified my ground with deliberate precision. I contacted Elise, a local lawyer with a sharp mind and compassionate gaze, requesting a comprehensive audit of Ironclad's financial and personnel records, citing years of exclusion and the suspicious timing of my dismissal. The clerk, Tom, a wiry man with a meticulous nature, flagged irregular expenses, executive bonuses padding Nathan's pockets, unapproved contracts with shell companies, patterns that mirrored the deceit I'd endured in silence. I saved the detailed data on a secure drive, a shield against the narrative Nathan would spin to reclaim his dominance. I updated my will, naming Mia as executor with a sense of finality that felt like closing a chapter, and secured a trust fund with Elise's meticulous guidance, locking my assets against any future encroachment. My phone buzzed with a relentless barrage. "Nathan's this is rash and unprofessional. A colleague's come back. Let's talk this out. Owen's your burning bridges." A cacophony I silenced, letting messages pile up like iron filings drawn to a magnet. 5 days later, Nathan called 8 times, his persistence a drumbeat of pressure against my resolve. I answered on the 9th, my tone steady despite the tremor in my chest. "Grace, what's this stunt?" he demanded, his voice a mix of authority and unease. I kept my response measured, cutting through his bluster. "Where's my father's legacy in all this?" He faltered. "Restructuring costs, profit margins, the usual corporate jargon, excuses that crumbled under the weight of my question." I pressed, "Profit doesn't justify a Lexus fleet for executives while workers scrape by." He snapped, "Don't threaten us with slander." I said, "You discarded me without cause. That's on you to explain." A coworker interjected, her voice pleading, "We need you to come back and help." "Not your crutch to lean on," I replied, ending the call with a resolve that surprised even myself. No remorse clouded my decision, only clarity remained. The next 72 hours were a tense lull, a pause before Nathan's inevitable counterattack, the air thick with anticipation like the fog rolling down from the mountains. Mia texted, "He's furious, digging into your history with HR." I replied with a steady hand, "Let him dig. I've got nothing to hide." She warned, "Your pride risks more fallout, lawsuits maybe." I countered, "Their silence risked my soul." She paused, the silence between us heavier than words. A space where understanding began to take root. Nathan emailed a vague apology, feigned regret, a promise of a performance review, shifting blame onto my emotional response. I didn't respond, adding his hollow words to my ledger, bracing for the spin he'd surely employ to regain control. A rumor surfaced through the grapevine. Layoffs loomed at Ironclad, a desperate move to shore up their image, and I let it settle like dust, knowing it was their burden to bear. I rebuilt my life with intentional steps, each one a brushstroke on a new canvas of steel and spirit. I worked late into the night, pursuing a metallurgy certification to deepen my craft, saving diligently for a studio space of my own where I could shape metal and meaning. The bungalow transformed, gaining a cast-iron stove that radiated warmth, a potted ivy climbing the wall with delicate tendrils, each a mark of independence woven into my days. Every Saturday I brewed spiced cider with hints of clove and nutmeg, its rich aroma a quiet rebellion against the chill of their rejection, a ritual that grounded me in Mom's memory. Whispers of their decline drifted to me. A supplier complained of delayed payments. A neighbor mentioned Nathan's strange smiles at a chamber event. They spun tales that I'd left for a competitor's offer, a convenient lie to mask their own instability. I let it fade into the background hum of the town. A month later, Jamal, a foundry engineer with a thoughtful demeanor, noticed my focus during a late shift review. "Metallurgy goal?" he asked, his curiosity genuine. I nodded, and he shared techniques, alloy ratios, heat treatments, leading to late-night sessions where we tested prototypes, his camaraderie a stark contrast to the isolation of Ironclad's corridors. One chilly night, a knock jolted me from my sketches. Mia, her face etched with tension. "Can we talk?" she asked, voice low. I stepped aside, letting her in. "Nathan's scrambling to cover tracks. Owen's worried about the fallout," she began. "I saw your ledger hint about their neglect. I'm sorry I didn't see it sooner." Her voice cracked, a fissure in her usual composure. "What's your next move?" I asked, my voice steady. "Trade school, maybe welding to build something real," she said, shifting her weight. We sat by the stove, a fragile truce forming between us, the space filled with the scent of cider and the soft crackle of burning logs. What would this bond hold? Reconciliation or further fracture? And how would I shape it through the currents of our shared past? That question glowed, an ember to tend, carrying me toward an unknown horizon. The amber glow of an Asheville sunset spilled through my bungalow window, warming the room as I sipped spiced cider, the scent of cinnamon rising from a clay mug. The legal documents from Elise lay on an oak table beside a photo of Dad at the foundry, a silent witness to the cemetery's betrayal and my break from Ironclad's grip. Nathan's unraveling faded like smoke over the Blue Ridge Mountains, eased by Mia's reconciliation and Jamal's support, which had planted seeds of renewal. The town's quiet rhythm, the whisper of pine needles, the distant rush of the French Broad River, enfolded me like a woven cloak. I'd turned their rejection into a foundation for something lasting, a legacy forged from my grit. The workbench, cluttered with metallurgy sketches, a thriving fern and a prototype mold, held the vision of a future I'd shape. What I'd built from this strength had guided me, and now it bloomed into a community I could uplift. In the months after Mia's visit, the bungalow became a sanctuary of self. Mia brought cornbread and tales, Lena sending carved bookmarks with notes like, "You're casting your own mold." Mia texted about trade school progress and a welding gig, her growth a tender shoot. Nathan and Owen receded into silence, their last plea, "Help us now," a distant murmur. I didn't linger, I acted. With savings and a $35,000 inheritance from Dad, his note reading, "For your steady hands," I founded the Holloway Forge Initiative, supporting overlooked tradeswomen with training, tools, and grants, my nod to the resilience I'd reclaimed. The initiative gained traction with solid momentum. I teamed with a local trade union, pitching a program for the sidelined. Funds flowed. A $45,000 grant from a women's fund, $15,000 from a steel supplier, $3,000 from Mia's craft fair. I brought Mia on for logistics, her focus a surprise, and Ravi, a mentor whose wisdom shaped the vision. We secured a space in West Asheville, a converted barn with skylights and steel beams, opening after 11 months. The Forge Hub launched on a crisp June morning, the air rich with honeysuckle. I stood with Mia and Ravi, shears ready as workers, allies, and neighbors gathered. "This is for the unseen," I said, voice resolute. Ravi snipped the ribbon, cheers rising like a mountain breeze, the space buzzing with purpose. Inside, the hub flourished. A workshop rang with Ravi's welding classes, a lounge hosted skill shares, and an office managed grants. I roamed the space, renewal easing old scars, and sat at my bench, writing. They saw me as expendable, not a daughter, but I've turned their dismissal into this. This hub affirms my worth. A forged sign by the door, crafted locally, read, "Strength in fire, growth in steel," a tribute to my path. That night I lingered, a fresh logbook symbolizing new beginnings. The months that followed cemented my course. The hub hosted trade fairs drawing women from Charlotte, training sessions filling the lounge, its name spreading through union networks. I hired Tara, a 29-year-old advocate, her drive mirroring my struggle. Initiative funds backed the Lena program, aiding Sophie, a teen mastering blacksmithing, her first blade a profound reward. Lena visited, bringing Nathan once. "You've created something," he muttered. We sat by the skylight, recalling old foundry days, a tentative thaw starting. Mia thrived, earning skills, joking, "I'm the organizer now." We started hearth nights, stew trail hikes, knitting a new bond. Owen stayed silent, but Lena encouraged, "Keep forging." 6 months later, I stood on the porch, the North Carolina dusk painting the sky in gold and indigo, the Blue Ridge a silent sentinel. The hub's progress, a $80,000 grant, a mobile forge, filled me with pride. The bungalow, once a haven, now felt like a springboard, its walls adorned with Sophie's blade and a map of our region. I traced the horizon, the town's lights glimmering like embers, and smiled. I'd shaped a life with intent, turning pain into a platform. The void left by Nathan and Owen birthed this. Mia's growth, Lena's care, the hub's pulse. I was whole, serene, my legacy tempered in a community I'd strengthened. Hey everyone! Thanks for tuning into the Revenge Tempest channel. If you love this story, please hit that subscribe button and join our amazing community. Drop a comment below letting us know where you watched us from. Your support keeps us going. Stay tuned for more epic tales,